Okay, I move to open the Marshfield Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have no business items, we have no minutes, so we will go right into the public hearing. The first of which is the RDA for 829A Old Main Street Extension. This has been withdrawn by the applicant. The town is going to be acquiring this property. So I move to accept the withdrawal on this. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'm going to take the next item a bit out of order. I'm going to go to 61 Damon's Point Road. This is a new hearing. I will read the legal ad. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed for 61 Damon's Point Road. And the hearing officer is Commissioner Platt.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mike, have all administrative requirements been met?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay. All right, so this work is located, proposed work is located within the flood zone, and also in the buffer zone to open water. Is there someone here to present this on Zoom? No? Is it? I can't see it.
Dorothy, are you here to present on Zoom? I noticed that you keep unmuting. I don't believe so. I did speak to the applicant about this, so I could speak on behalf of this
Sure,
project.
sure.
The homeowner recently acquired this house within the last year or two. Since then, several larger limbs have fallen on the roof of the home. As you can see, the trees circled here have branches overhanging the home, some of which are really in not good condition. There's 4 deciduous trees out there. There's also a white pine that is essentially split in half at the base. So they'd like to remove these trees. I did speak with the homeowner, and they are open to doing some plantings in compensation for the tree removal. I believe that Eastern Red Cedar could be a good choice here. Given the size of these trees, you might want to do a 2-to-1 ratio or something of that nature.
Okay, thank you. Also, so I was out there as well and took a look, and I do agree that there are multiple dead limbs on a few of these trees, as well as the white pine does look like it's rotting a little bit, and just the way that they're placed. I'll just read the Board of Health comments. The tree removal people that come in to take the trees down, they do need to keep any traffic off of the existing septic system that's out there. Do any commissioners have any comments on this? I don't know if I think that there are 5 trees out there. If the homeowners are amenable, maybe doing the 10 red cedars.
I would ask them if they would consider leaving stumps,
Oh, yes, I
Like-
can.
4 to 5 feet high on the deciduous trees.
Yes, I can certainly inquire that. The trees in the, I guess, bottom half of this picture, these 3 trees, are within a manicured lawn type environment. But I will bring that up to the homeowner and encourage them to stump them.
Yes.
Mike, could you explain again what the resource areas are there?
Yes, this is in the flood zone AE 9, I believe, and then it's within buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetland around the edge of the pond, and also the pond, which is open water.
So about how far back from the pond is the house? Maybe 75
I
feet?
think roughly 75 feet. I didn't measure it out.
Yeah, I'd be more concerned about what's in that area, back behind the house.
Yeah, no, that's the more,
So.
the resource area.
Request plantings to specify.
Keeping them in the, or planting them in that area there.
At least consider that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. What was your suggestion for number of plants?
I was gonna say double, do 10.
10, so, put at least 8.
Out there.
On the
Depending on
resource
where
side.
it is, I believe there's some. They're not mowing down to the water, so we could condition to put the eastern red cedars along the edge of lawn in the back, or at least 8 of them along the edge of lawn in the back.
Yeah, let them choose so they can preserve any few they might have.
Yeah, I'll encourage it, but yes.
Okay, any other comments from the commissioners? Okay. Are there any comments from the public on Zoom? Okay. All right, Mike, do you wanna read, any conditions?
Yes, I would suggest the following special conditions. Ensure best management practices are followed before commencing the work. Obtain all pertinent permits. See myself or the conservation agent for guidance on conservation permits for work beyond the approved work activities. And the planting of 10 eastern red cedar trees on the property.
Yep.
And specify that the majority of them go on the pond side of
Pond
the
side.
house.
Perfect, I will condition that.
Okay. All right, then I am going to move to vote to close the hearing, and issue a determination of applicability, with a +5, and Mike, was it a -2?
Yes, -2.
And a -2. Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. I'm going to note that Commissioner Platt is leaving the meeting now.
Thank you.
Next up is 1187 Ferry. This is a continued hearing. Vice Chair O'Donnell is the hearing officer.
Again, Mike, can't quite see who's here.
I do not see Mr. Antonick on here tonight. He's typically the individual who represents this property. Is anybody here on behalf of PJ Antonick?
Can we close that bar that goes through the,
Oh, yes.
it's making it a little harder, but we
Actually,
still
I'm not
can.
sure I can. It's funny that the bar that goes through the
The
people joining it
windows of
remotely, I
the Zoom
can't.
people, yeah,
I can't control that
Okay.
from here.
that's fine.
In the absence of anybody to present, should we continue this or maybe reopen if he shows up?
Yeah, that's a good
Or
idea.
defer it?
We'll put it aside
Yes,
Like-
that could be good to put it aside until the end of the
if he
meeting.
does show up.
If not, I can, you could continue it to the next meeting if he doesn't show up by the end of the meeting. And I could also have the discussion about the piece of the site plan that was
Okay.
missing.
So
Yeah.
we want to convey that to him?
Yes.
Yeah, he needs to know that, okay.
PJ said he would be on momentarily.
Okay.
So, you know. I don't know.
We'll move on then, because you're next.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere.
Okay, we're going to put that one aside until the applicant is able to be on. And now we're going to go to 17 Oregon Road. This is a continued hearing, and Commissioner Malafronte is the hearing officer.
Okay. I guess at this point, Mike, we haven't received new information.
No.
I know some of the commission members took a walk
Yes.
on the site, I think it was last week.
Yes.
I don't know if you wanted to provide an update, or, I mean, we hatched it out last meeting.
I mean, there were, what, 5 of us or something there that took a walk at the site
Yep.
and, you know, discussed the conditions of it versus the other houses. I know Mr. Powell was on, and I believe John was going to jump on. And I think the meeting's early, isn't it? Wasn't it early tonight? Because I had it as starting at 6:40 on an agenda that I looked at.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that might, you know, John might be, and there was 2 in front of us, so.
It looks like both John and Frank Powell are online virtually right
Are
now.
they? Okay. I know John wanted to add some information. You know, just to reiterate, what, you know, I dropped off some of the maps that show, you know, how far away the actual, you know, the state maps, where they designate the barrier beach, but, you know, we discussed that. I mean, once again, that's the tool I use when I go to the building department. Where are we in what zone? So it's very hard to hang your hat or, you know, choose a particular site. And as I said to the board, you know, where do you go from here? And if you designate this something different than what I have as tools from, you know, for the building commissioner and myself, where do you go with the next job in the area? But that's something we would have to wrestle with. So, I think we're something like 240 feet away from where it's designated as Barrier Beach. And we've been using these for years, so they get more and more specific all the time, better updated information, but that's the tool that I have to use to, and the building department uses.
Is Mr. Zimmer, is that John? Is that who you're waiting for?
John Zimmer, is he on?
John Zimmer is on.
Does he have any input on this?
Yeah, he did want to discuss some things tonight in reference to what we feel is a non-functioning Barrier Beach, but.
Yeah, how about you met Andrew's on there? Wonder if you messed with Andrew? Oh, he was there, he's there.
Oh, it appears, I just got a message from the building commissioner. It appears that the chamber is mooted on Zoom.
I can, and the commission, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear John now?
I think that was him, right?
I think that was.
The town hall chamber is muted
That's him.
on Zoom.
Oh,
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, Craig, we can hear you now, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I guess we'll restart. So 17 Oregon Road. We had a site walk last week with about 5. It was
About 5 of the commissioners.
3
were there.
commissioners, the applicant, some of the applicant's
Yep.
representatives, and Mike attended as well.
Yes.
And the owner, Mr. Powell.
Yeah, and then Mr. Zimmer, it's been indicated that you have some information you'd like to add or discuss.
Sure, I can start us off, or if you guys wanted to give a summary of the site walk first, that's fine, or I can just jump into it, whatever you like.
You can jump into it.
Okay. All right, so the question surrounding coastal dune within the property, you know, obviously it's our position that there is no coastal dune there. A formal determination hasn't been made yet one way or the other, but what I would like to bring up today is that even if the area was considered a coastal dune by the commission, it's our position that the dune does not function to protect the interests of the act or the bylaw. So under both the act and the bylaw, if a coastal dune is presumed to be significant to the interests of the act, and as the commission knows, I think there's 13 different interests. Under the Wetlands Protection Act for coastal dune, there are 3 interests which are presumed to be significant. Those are storm damage prevention, flood control, and wildlife habitat. Under the bylaw, those presumptions of significance are expanded to include pretty much the entirety of the interests that are identified in the bylaw, which include things like aquaculture, groundwater supply, and some other things that really aren't necessarily relevant to the property here. So what I'd like to do is go through the 3 main interests under the Wetlands Protection Act that are presumed to be significant, and basically demonstrate why those interests aren't being protected, by the coastal dune if it was considered a coastal dune. So first is storm damage prevention, and under the act, the presumption is that the coastal dune supplies sand to the beach, which really isn't the case here because there's really no way for the sand to get to the beach through the property, but basically across Mayflower, there's another property, there's a seawall as well. So if you think about a classic coastal dune, it's a coastal dune form that basically slopes down into a coastal beach, and it allows for the coastal dune to erode into the beach and provide a sediment source. So that really isn't there here. The second is flood control, and with respect to flood control, it's the ability of the coastal dune to provide a vertical buffer to wave action and coastal flood action. If you've been to the site, you've seen it's flat. There is no traditional coastal dune form that would allow it to function for flood control purposes. So there's really no vertical buffer there. It's basically the seawall is the vertical buffer, which is basically a coastal bank instead of a coastal dune. And the third is wildlife habitat. And with respect to wildlife habitat, that is mainly associated with nesting habitat for species such as terns and gulls. And if you're on Duxbury Beach, it's the dunes that provide the nesting habitat for piping plovers. So that's the type of wildlife habitat that's specified within the Wetlands Protection Act. They also do discuss some wildlife habitat with respect to if there are spaces within the dunes that will function as wet meadows or as vernal pools. Those obviously aren't applicable here. So with respect to those 3 main interests that are identified in the Act, the property doesn't function to provide any of those protections. So, even if it was a coastal dune, it's not a functional coastal dune, and, basically the rebuttal of the presumption of significance is pretty clear. And those are the main performance standards and interests that are also covered in the bylaw. There is erosion control as well, which is similar to flood control. It's the ability of the dune to function as a barrier and then provide take the brunt of the wave action and erode naturally back and forth. So that really isn't here as well. So our feeling is if the commission does conclude that the area is a coastal dune, then there is an allowance under the Wetlands Protection Act regulations to rebut that presumption of significance, and for the commission to determine that the resource area does not function to protect those interests. So that's pretty much the information that I wanted to bring up tonight, which would, if the commission felt agreed with my analysis, it would allow the commission to move forward with in order of conditions for the property. I would say that there is going to be a net benefit for wildlife habitat associated with this, because we are going to be revegetating a portion of the site. It's obviously not really gonna provide nesting habitat for terns and other nesting birds, but it will provide a measure of habitat value that's not currently there. So I'd be happy to open up the discussion, answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you. Do any commission members have any?
Just had a comment to make about the site being, the project site is relatively flat because it's been used as a volleyball court, but the larger landform is a ridge or a mound because it slopes up from the beach. You hit a seawall, but it still continues to slope upwards. And then if you go behind the property, it slopes downwards towards Ocean Street back there? Yeah, Surf Ave and beyond. So the entire landform is the dune. That's the hill or the ridge or the mound. And since it is in a coastal flood zone, A03, I believe,
Yes.
the main source of flood water would be waves coming over the seawall and causing water to flow up over that landform and down the back. So as it flows up over the landform and interacts with the dune, the sand that's been deposited there either by wind or previous wave action, although some of that could have been deposited there from overwash. The dune does function as part of being storm damage prevention and flood control in that way, by allowing the flood water to flow across, interact with the sand, which helps to dissipate it, and then also percolate, and because it's impervious. So it does absorb flood water in that way. So just wanted to make that point there. So I would argue respectfully, John, that it is beneficial to the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Right, so what, I guess I would respond to that by saying I think there's maybe a 1 foot elevation differential across the property. It's really not providing a vertical buffer for storm damage prevention or for flood control. I mean, flood control is really, it's basically a vertical buffer that's going to help dissipate that flood action. The area absolutely functions for land such as coastal storm flowage, and it meets those performance standards. But I don't see it functioning as storm damage prevention or flood control. And
Yeah.
I think Mr. Powell can also.
I think the
comment,
coastal.
but I don't believe that he's seen any storm overwash in the 15, 20 years that he's been there.
So, yeah, the coastal dune functions on the site are limited, but it is part of that larger dune landform, which does provide some storm damage and flood control. And I think, it's not uncommon to see overwash occur here. Since it is, so close to the ocean.
Right, and I don't think Mr. Powell's seen any storm water within that property since he's owned it.
Yeah, the FEMA flood maps, though, are based on a 1% annual chance. So, there's a 1% chance of that happening every year, and perhaps it hasn't seen a flood in that time frame that he's lived there, and probably maybe 100 years, but we're just trying to work within, the information that we have from FEMA as well.
Understood.
Any other commissioners?
Well, I would say that my, my opinion is this is a coastal dune. And the way the regulations are written, 310 CMR 10.28 states that when a proposed project involves dredging, filling, removing, or alteration of a coastal dune, the issuing authority shall presume that the area is significant to the interests of storm damage prevention, flood control, and the protection of wildlife habitat. This presumption may be overcome only upon a clear showing that a coastal dune does not play a role in storm damage prevention, flood control, or the protection of wildlife habitat, and if the issuing authority makes a written determination to that effect. So I read that as meaning this commission would need to make that written determination based on what John has just provided us. And I would ask that, John, if you would provide to us in writing your comments on this dune's non-functionality regarding those interests.
Okay, I can do that. I would cover both the act and the bylaw.
Thank you.
I had some questions.
All right, Frank, I just wanted to follow on to Craig's comment.
Sure, go ahead.
So John, I'd also, I did all kinds of homework on this, and then I talked to Craig, and I left it on my desk, and so I'm trying to, like my son, use my phone to look up notes here. But also, Massachusetts Regulation 310 CMR 1028 lists 6 items to address to show there is no negative impact on the wetland values. Are you familiar with that, Reg?
Sorry, yes, I am.
Okay, because it spells it out right there, you know, what would allow us to determine that even though this is a coastal dune, the project can go forward as long as these 6 items. It's, like I said, 310 CMR 1028, Section 3, sort of lays them out, and I think, you know, I don't want to go through them now, but, you know, I think just building on what Craig says, I think if, as long as those things are addressed to our satisfaction, then, you know, we can go forward with the project. That's all I have to add.
Okay, so yeah, just to quickly respond to that, those are the performance standards for projects within a coastal dune that are presumed to be significant. So what I could do is include demonstration of project compliance with those performance standards as well. You know, just kind of trying to be, I guess, comprehensive.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the word significant, that kind of throws you off. Like, so what is significant, what is not significant? You know, I'm not sure that this property is significant to storm damage, but it does list 6 items. And I think what you're saying addresses these 6 items in a way that would, you know, allow us to go forward with the project.
Sure. Yep, understood.
Okay, thank you.
Bert?
So I was not at the last hearing, but I have watched the video and signed the affidavit for that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were still in the process of trying to determine if this is dune or beach or whatever.
Yeah, and that was something that I was going to wrap kind of it up. But Mr. Zimmer, I think it would be helpful for the commission if in this letter it was kind of stated based on whether you were to do any soil evaluation, which we're not requiring, I don't think, but if you made a justification in that letter that you, in your professional opinion, you do believe that the larger landform was once functioned as a dune prior to the wall, and it still has many characteristics of a dune. I think it would be an easier, it would help the commission make a decision in an easier form, because and then we could disqualify that whether it is a dune or not a dune if you just make that justification, and then the performance then of its functionality, I think, is what we're really asking for. And Bert, if you had anything else.
Well, that previous building permit, I don't know if the rest of the commission has had a chance to look at it, but from the 90s, that actually called it Barrier Beach at that time.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then we also have the hearing for Constellation Road, which is just a little further down there.
Yeah.
And that was determined to be coastal dune. And I think, John, you may recall that one. I think you were on the commission at the time. Constellation Road.
On Constellation, I may have been, I don't
It was,
recollect that.
it was
I know we did one on
was the,
Constitution that I do not believe was.
Oh, was it Constitution?
It was
No,
the
it's
Sanborn lot.
Constellation.
The Sanborn lot on
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, John, that was distributed or made available again for all the commission members. So we had a chance to review that, that project and kind of the back and forth on that project, as well as the determination and the appeal and the whole 9 yards of that project. And my opinion, this lot, it has many of the same characteristics as that lot. Its proximity to the seawall and the beach is very similar.
What address
And-
was that, if I may?
It doesn't actually have an address, but it's
That was the lot from
It's
15
a-
years
it's
ago
an
or
empty
something?
lot or Constellation?
The one
It was-
that was argued 15 years ago?
directly
2008.
adjacent to 31
2008.
Constellation.
yeah, adjacent to 31.
Yeah, directly adjacent to 31 Constellation.
Yeah.
We had to issue a stop work order for a gentleman with a bulldozer on that property 2 years ago.
Okay. But anyway,
Oh, 2 years ago.
the
A separate
the
issue.
application was in 2008. There was a stop work order issued 2 years ago for work taking place on that. But anyway, my feeling is that a lot of the characteristics of that project are very similar for this project. And that's kind of my take on it after going out there, doing a lot of research as well. And I would agree with a lot of what Corey said about the larger landform too. I did have a chance to look at the surficial geology map of this area. It's very indicative that the whole area at one time did function as a dune, as we may all suspect. But I think, Mr. Zimmer, that's kind of, if we've given you enough information, I think that's what we're looking for, is a letter justifying that, as well as outlining the performance standards, as well as the functionality in relation to the 3 bullet points you mentioned that are in the act, as well as the additional 3 in our bylaw. And then we can kind of go from there. And I, for the applicant's sake, we're not necessarily saying that this is going to be something that can't move forward at all, but this is the path forward. And then having a discussion for later on the constructability of anything that is built there is kind of another story, I guess. And if there's no other comments from the applicant's representatives, is there anyone in the public that has a comment or question on this?
Mr. Powell want to
Yeah,
say
I think-
something?
Mr. Powell, did you want to say anything?
No, I think John earlier asked, I've owned it since 2013, and there's never been any water that comes over the road that even makes my lot. It's not accident as a dune.
Yeah, and we understand that, but in all reality, in the time sense of kind of geology and earth movement, 14 years is a very small time period. That's not to say next week we couldn't get a 100-year storm or a 500-year storm that potentially impacts that seawall. You know what I mean? It could happen tomorrow. it's very fortunate that nothing like that has happened in the 13 years you've owned it or so. But it's not to say that it couldn't happen this year or next year or even in 15 years. And that's kind of the commission's goal, to make sure that everything is built to a standard that if something like that were to happen, projects that we approve are kind of in a place to hopefully survive something like that, or at least function in a way that it does.
And that being said, I appreciate your professionalism, and I totally don't understand it all, but okay, I respect it. But on the same hand, my neighbors, when they went through the same process, they didn't have to do any of this, and they all put, concrete foundation in. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I
And how,
don't necessarily think that a concrete foundation is going to be something that, Mike, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I would like to point out with that too. 24 Oregon Road, directly across the street, I know it was pointed out. They, after doing some satellite research today, I discovered that they hardscaped their property after receiving a certificate of compliance. So we will have to be issuing a notice of violation for that work. They built a patio around the perimeter of the home and also a full-length asphalt driveway on both sides of the home after they received a certificate of compliance. So that is not something that is typically permitted and wouldn't necessarily be permitted.
Okay.
yeah, but I'll have John point out in his letter that the other projects, I mean, the most recent one is 60 Foster Ave, that's right on the beach wall. I mean, it's attached to the beach wall also, it's right, and they recently put a fountain. So I don't know where the standard should be, we should have a standard and not pick and choose.
And
Just say.
Mr. Paul,
That's all.
Craig, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on the concrete foundation versus the open piles or quarry, maybe even, on if the determination that it was a coastal dune and Mr. Zimmer's in agreement with that, and he provides performance standards that the functionality is not necessarily functioning as a dune.
That does not preclude a solid foundation. Okay, even if we're going to all agree this is a coastal dune, and we need to move further through the process, but that does not necessarily require you to go up on piles, if that's a concern for you.
Thank you for the
Andrew
clarification.
has his hand up.
And if I may?
Hold on one sec. Bert, did you have something to add before we?
Well, only one other point about, that there's never any flooding and never any damage. This is a repetitive loss area, so that comes from statistics.
Yeah.
So clearly something happened somewhere
Right.
in that neighborhood.
Right.
The other thing is, Mike, going back a couple slides, you had a very good picture of the whole area there. There's a number of dune-like areas within that picture right there.
We'll also point out, if I may, sorry to interrupt. Were you finished?
No, I think we've made the point. I think, before we talked about soils testings and everything, if the applicant just wants to see that this is a coastal dune, then we can move on. Sorry not to jump on you, Sam, but
No,
I think you said the same thing.
Yeah. And then Mike, do you have anything else to add?
That's essentially it.
Okay. Andrew, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I do. So, under the building code, it says that if the Conservation Commission delineates a property as a coastal dune, that it has to be on an open pile type foundation. So it would preclude them from using a concrete foundation. In order to get anything different from that, they would have to get a variance from the Building Code Appeals Board. If you guys issue an order of conditions saying it's a coastal dune but allow a concrete foundation, in order for that to happen, they'd have to get a variance from the Building Code Appeals Board because the building code says it has to be on open piles if the commission delineates it as a coastal dune. If the commission doesn't delineate it as a coastal dune, then it just goes to that flood zone. standard of construction. But, and that's something I specifically cannot give them a variance of. They would have to go to the Building Code Appeals Board once it's delineated. So just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Andrew.
So can I respond to
Can I ask
that?
a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is, yeah, Mr. Zimmer, Craig has a
I just
question
want
or
to
comment.
Okay.
respond to what Andrew said. The proposal for the new regs allow land subject to coastal storm flowage standards for new development in the MIWA zones. They would allow the elevation of buildings on piles or a solid foundation with one additional foot above base flood elevation. Now, those have not been promulgated yet, but we are expecting them to be. Would that make a difference?
If I may, no. It won't make a difference, because there was the garage underneath, so all our living spaces, another 4 or 5 feet higher. So the fact of whether it's the A03 or the A04 with the extra foot added from the state, we're already up that height.
But I think the question was
I think
more
that's
in
what you were
regards to
saying.
the foundation, right? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, you're muted. I don't know if you're, if you had any.
No, so it would not change anything. It's under, this has been in the building code for the last 3 editions. So it has been promulgated. It's a coastal dune standard that was added in the 8th edition, so that building code would work with conservation and DEP to protect specifically coastal dunes from being developed upon in a manner that, you know, would be harmful. So that's the whole thing. So if you're going to delineate this area as a coastal dune, then the foundation that they're proposing will not be allowed. So that's really been the whole crux of this whole thing from the very beginning, is, you know, the fact that as building officials, we use the coastal resources map for building officials that was made by the DEP and CZM to give us an understanding of where the barrier beaches are, so that we can help people design the proper foundation for that. So again, it's section R322.4 in the building code, and it's considered a flood hazard standard. And in chapter 1 of the building code, it says that the building official may not grant any modifications to any flood hazard standard in the building code. So that's why they would have to go get a variance if this is delineated as a coastal dune.
Thank you.
Andrew, didn't you say that this has to go to ZBA anyway?
Next Wednesday,
Yeah, that's next Tuesday, yeah.
or Tuesday, yes.
So if it's going to ZBA anyway, that's,
Nothing's changed from our approval, it's just that it had lapsed. Regs haven't changed, our drawings haven't been touched, it's the same house, so there's no issue that I would expect with zoning. We're just doing a special permit extension of a non-conforming. And if I may,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that reference to the house, that house on Constellation next to 31,
Mhm.
I'm not sure of the timing, but it might have been a velocity zone at that time. I'd have to go look back at the maps, because that's when the maps were increased. I have houses down there that went way up, and then they don't have to go up anymore. I was involved with that, and I was familiar with that property. Also, that, it wasn't like someone had a house on that and they wanted to extend it. That was just a piece of land that, somebody bought only that lot and couldn't do a new house.
Right, and,
And I don't know all the specifics beyond it, but.
yeah,
right, that was an empty lot. That
it wasn't.
And so I think there are some other things in the dynamic why it was shut down. So just want to make a reference to that.
John, want to say something?
Yeah, John, you mentioned, I think before Andrew spoke, you had something to add or comment?
No, I think he addressed it. My question was whether, all structures would need to be elevated on piles, but with living space over the garage, that
Okay, I think we've had a pretty clear discussion on tonight. What we're looking for, Mr. Zimmer, just so, if you could submit a letter kind of outlining everything that we've talked about and what was discussed. I think that's probably the next step forward with this project. But if there's no other comments from the public, I would like to make a motion to continue this hearing until the next scheduled meeting, which is February 5th, I think.
Yes, February 5th.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
all right, thanks very much. Have a good night.
Okay.
I believe,
Is Mr. Antoniuk here?
Yeah, sorry for being late. I got delayed out of Logan.
Uh-oh. So we are back to 1187 Ferry Street, and the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you want to give some comments on this?
Yes, the plantings were increased as mentioned, and also the planting area was increased to the former extent of the proposed yard, creating that buffer between the maintained yard and the wetland. My only comment is that these conservation markers should be moved towards edge of lawn to prevent any encroachment into the planting area in the future.
Yes, Mr. Antoniuk, do you understand Mike's point there?
Yep, no problem. That was, I think we just missed moving them. I was aware that that has to happen. But I think it just was missed on the plan. But we've already had the blue line staked out. We're just waiting for some warm weather to pull the grass. And we've got gravel there already, ready to go. So, we're just waiting for weather really, and then we'll get everything done but the plants, and then once the plants are in, this spring, we'll throw the plants in, and then, in the process, we'll move those markers forward. And I know that, one of the, members wanted me to change them to 4x4s, which I plan to do, because they're currently cedar 2x4s.
Very good. What's your thought? You want to see the revised drawing, or?
I would say if we could get the revised drawing by the end of the week.
I'm happy to have it revised. I'll get it, it's Wednesday, so I'll see if I can get it in by Friday, but I can't guarantee it with other people's schedules.
I think that's acceptable.
Yeah.
In that case,
Yep. Michael, you want them on the front edge of the blue? Is that where you want them?
Yes, just on on this dotted blue line here,
Yep.
along the edge of lawn.
any commissioners have any comments on this one?
Nope, I'm fine with it.
How about the public? Any comments on this? I hear none. I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and issue the conditions, the revised conditions, subject to revised drawing by, when do you think it might be?
Perfect. Yes, and the conditions would be the same as the last permit issued, essentially.
Okay, if I got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Two.
Okay, 33 Bay Street. This is a new hearing. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, to consider the notice of intent filed for 33 Bay Street. And the hearing officer is Commissioner Miles.
Mike, have all administrative requirements been met?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay. This project is proposing an addition to an existing house and subject to coastal storm flowage and barrier beach. Would you like to describe the project?
Yes, hi, Rick Savant with Stenbeck and Taylor. This is the homeowner, Ken Jasper. So yes, as you stated, Corey, we have a proposed addition. It's approximately 700 square feet, 696 square feet. It's proposed on the front of the house. The project's located in the AE9 flood zone and within the barrier beach zone also. The new work will be on wood piles. I don't know if you recall, we were in a few months ago maybe talking about the foundation type, similar discussion you just had. But this has been adjusted to be on wood piles. We do understand that it is a substantial substantial improvement, excuse me. And the existing home will have to be brought into compliance with FEMA flood regulations, and it will be. They're gonna have to add flood vents to the house. They're going to have to elevate the crawl space, or the lower level of the home is gonna have to be filled in a certain amount to match the lowest adjacent grade outside the building. And again, yeah, with the flood vents to bring the house into compliance. The new work will be in compliance, will be elevated in excess of 2 feet off the ground on open piles. So we're also proposing to do some reconfiguring of the rear deck there, the stairs, forgive me, on the rear deck. There's a stair off the back of the house that's going to be repositioned on the side. And there'll also be a large set of stairs on the Kentucky Street side that's going to be removed altogether. Small deck extension of the existing deck is shown also on the Kentucky Street side. That's about 62 square feet. And maybe most importantly with the project, looking at the impervious coverages, we have a large area of pavement behind the house that's also going to be removed at this time. It's 940 square feet of pavement that's there, which will be converting to a pervious surface, which brings the whole site, when the project's complete, to about a 216 square foot decrease in impervious surface. Even with the addition, of course, that'll be open under there for floodwaters and such, but there's also some trees on this property in the front yard that are in the area of this addition that are not shown on the plan, that should have been. But there's cedar trees that are out along Bay Street. There's about 9 of them. I have a photograph here that I can take a look at that we are requesting tonight that to remove and replace with a similar, not size, but the same type of tree somewhere else on the property. Some of those trees are really close to the home. Some of them are hanging over the house. And of course, just for construction access and driving piles out in the front there, and any excavation work that needs to be done, those cedar trees will be coming down, and we're gonna replant red cedars on the lot, and maybe in a similar location, but in different spots on the lot.
Okay.
So that's the basic project, new addition, bringing the house into compliance with the flood regulations.
Okay.
And I'll answer any questions you might have.
For the new stairs,
Mm-hmm.
will there be a landing at the bottom of the stairs, or will it just go to the ground?
I didn't see one on the design plans. There could be, I think, building code requirements that it does have to have a landing at the base of the stairs, just as general construction. I'm not sure of the type, but I believe typically it's concrete or a small pad. I believe that it is required that some sort of landing be at the base of the stairs.
Okay. Yeah, if you could just maybe add that to your calculations for impervious.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't have any other questions or anything. Do any commissioners have any comments? I see Andrew's hand up, but I'm not sure if that's left over from the last one. Nope,
Okay.
it's down. Okay. Any other questions from the public? Comments? Mike, special conditions?
Yes, I would suggest the following special conditions. General conditions 1 through 18 are standard special conditions. Prior to construction, condition 5 and 2, to have a pre-construction meeting and ensure that the site is staked out. During construction, condition 11, ensure best management practices are followed. After construction, condition 1, to file for a certificate of compliance. And erosion control, condition 1, to ensure that erosion control is in place throughout duration of work.
All right.
And I would include replanting of cedars. I think there are what, about?
9.
9? Replant 9 cedars on the property.
Perfect.
Do they have to be cedars or can they
Well-
whatever you,
They don't have to be cedars.
Native trees.
native coastal?
Yeah.
trees that-
In kind for what was removed.
All right. We will make a motion to close the hearing, issue the order of conditions. Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Photo back, Ken?
Sure.
Next is Brewster Road. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, to consider the notice of intent filed for 39 and 47 Brewster Road, and the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell.
Thank you. Mike, have administrative requirements been met?
All administrative requirements have been met, yes.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Present
Thank you.
Brad, or
Excuse me?
you're gonna present?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with ECR. Along with me this evening is Mark Oakes, for the applicant as property owner. We've submitted a notice of intent for a vegetation management plan at 39 and 47 Brewster Road. The commission is, I believe, fairly aware of this property. I was involved in it years ago with wetland delineation on Mark's property, as well as wetland delineation along with Art Allen on 47 Brewster Road. And there was 2 projects that were permitted by the commission and other projects associated with the property, but there were 2 projects and some work started consisting of vegetation clearing, which was stopped. And since that time, Mr. Oakes has purchased the property, and we'd like to clean up what was done on the lot and improve the lot with a vegetation management plan. So what we've done is, as you see on the aerial image, we're designating the buffer zone, the vegetated buffer beyond the bordering vegetated wetland. That's the shaded area in green. That's the vegetated buffer that exists now. We're proposing to do vegetation management activities in that buffer zone. A portion of the site is also within the coastal flood zone, the FEMA, the flood zone. What we're proposing to do is remove non-native invasive vegetation, selective removal and treatment with herbicide, just a wiping of the stump so that it won't re-sprout. And we're proposing replacement with native coastal salt tolerant vegetation within that area. We're also proposing a selection of seed mixes in some grassland meadow areas within that shaded area and beyond. One of the activities is you see the remove stumps and spread and wood chips. That area was in that process of clearing. There are a number of stumps that are remaining that we would like to remove, and there's a significant amount of wood chips in that area that won't decompose properly unless there's some removal or at least spreading them out. So that area would also be used to revegetate and kind of improve the site. So overall, we're looking to improve conditions and have a kind of mini ecological restoration here on 39 and 47. We're not proposing any structures or other work activities here other than the improvement plan. And I'll let Mark also.
Also, what I'm doing, I'm in the process of merging those lots. So lot 47 Brewster Road will no longer be a lot of record. It's going to be merged with my existing property. Very much interested in, it was left in kind of a really rough state. Working with, the key for me is to work with Brad to get species that are adapted, mixed, really a combination of wildlife management and aesthetics.
I'm sure the commission would be supportive of that, and I'll bring it back.
From my standpoint, I consider this all good news, particularly the merging of the lots. I was wondering what was gonna happen there. My only concern is to understand, you know, from the wetland lines through the buffer zones, you know, typically, we wouldn't be touching anything, you know, inside of the 50, but you are gonna, you know, get rid of invasives within there. And you also have a mowing plan for once a year?
Just within the areas where we're looking to do some meadow, small meadow areas, which would be mainly in that open area now where the stumps and wood chips are.
Okay.
We wouldn't be going into the vegetated, but the existing vegetated buffer, we're not proposing to open, you know, meadow areas
Yeah.
and remove vegetation to create that. And that area is just to basically select the Morels honeysuckle, privet, the invasive woody shrubs, and bittersweet, cut them and pull them out, wipe the stumps so they don't stump sprout, and then replace, interplant natives in that area. Within the area that's, we would also plant and do some kind of little grassland areas in that existing open area. That areas of meadow would be the annual mow only. There wouldn't be proposed in the, beyond that.
Okay.
That way we can keep the meadow from, with new woody vegetation coming in. So we have a little diversity there.
In your experience, do you expect the treatment with the herbicides will work the first time around, or will you need to come back and do that again in the future?
It's gonna be something that's gonna be a management every year. I think, you know, there's a lot of work here, so it's not gonna be something that can be done, you know, all at once. But then after the initial event is done, usually the wiping of this cut stem is very effective on the woody vegetation. You might find some resprouting, but there's gonna be a lot of new colonization of invasives. But it shouldn't be as bad as it is now once it's under management, but it can't be left for a significant, you can't walk away from these and just think that they're gonna be fine. It's still gonna be ongoing management.
Mike, have you got any comments?
The perimeter of this site, as Mr. Holmes has mentioned, is primarily, there are a number of invasive species in there. I think controlling that and preventing them from moving further in on the site could be of interest. I think the regular application of herbicide could be necessarily, especially with species such as Phragmites, honeysuckle, privet, that are pretty, they come back pretty quickly. I can see the need that it would have to be sprayed every year. However, it should, as noted in the NOI, be only by licensed herbicide professionals, and also given the commission some sort of notice before it occurs. That being said, it does go, the management of those invasives does go directly up to the wetland line, so herbicides would be applied essentially along that wetland line there.
I'd like to open it up to comments from the other commissioners. Some of you that may have a little more experience with this.
Oh, I remember we talked, what was it, 37 Rooster? That came before us for a tree removal, right?
Yes, that was the most
Recent.
trees were removed that should not have been.
Yeah, so I remember that it was left in quite a state of mess.
Yes.
So I think this is a great project. I mean, it's an improvement in all those invasive plants.
One other thing, there was just really tremendous concern on my part with the construction of Chilton Road being elevated and then diverting a lot of water from, there's a lot of water. There's been a tremendous development on Peregrine White, very steep slopes. The amount of runoff coming down Brewster has increased significantly. So what I'm looking to do, that's part of the grassland plan there, to really create an area that's dense sod that's going to hit, that's where that runoff hits now. It goes out into that lot that's wood chips. It never gets to the wetland. It infiltrates. But my idea is, if I can get those wood chips reduced, we can establish some really native grasses that are going to work very well as far as a filtering device and infiltration. It's not going to be a settlement basin. It's going to be a natural area that's sloped, so it just gently flows and fans out and dissipates. And also, there's not going to be now an elevated septic system built on that lot. And, you know, my idea is to do as much mechanical control of these invasives that I can. I mean, I live right next door to it. And also, I think from the standpoint of looking at bird habitat, it is important to maintain some native grasses that really grow up and aren't mowed until the 1st of August.
Yeah. That's great.
So that's why I hired Brad. I really want to come in front of the commission saying my goal is to restore this property. I saw woodcocks there this spring, owls, all kinds of native birds. It's really a wonderful property that now is going to be taken care of.
Your own wildlife refuge.
It is.
Pretty cool. Look forward to seeing how it evolves.
So, at first, when I looked at this, my thought was to ask for some conservation markers, but it seems like we're going to allow work within most of that buffer zone. So it's, I think it's more of a case, this management plan is in place. Conservation has the ability to go back and check on things.
Right, and yeah, as you point out, normally we wouldn't, infringe behind the 50, but this will be a betterment. So, yeah, looking at it, it's not an ecological restoration application, but it's more in the spirit of that. With respect to mowing your meadow in late in the summer, early fall, Brad would know a whole lot more about this than I do, but I have a large field abutting my house, and it's always been mown twice a year, and the man who mowed it forever is no longer with me, and I've left it up over the winter. And I have so much bird activity and animal activity. I'm gonna mow mine in probably late March.
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking at it all winter for years and nothing is happening. And now I have flocks of goldfinch and juncos and so,
Sounds
could
like a
look at that,
plan.
yeah, I mean-
I mean, I don't know, I'm
Right.
just playing with it.
Well, basically, we could just leave out a specific time of year, just a once per year mowing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, yeah,
Yeah,
once a year, and you can do what you want, but I am very interested to see how much activity there is over the winter.
yeah, that's good. I mean, there's no really benefit, I mean, the purpose of the annual mowing is to prevent it from getting
From
encroached or
turning back
woody.
into a woody,
Right,
yeah.
and you would want to do that after, any avian nesting and, at
Mhm.
the end of the fall. But it's not like anything's vegetatively going to happen at that point till the spring. So if you left it in
Right.
place, as long as you cut it, before the spring,
Yep,
Well, I would agree that.
So that would be
if-
fine.
If we've got a wildflower mix in that, that's definitely what you want to leave it.
oh, absolutely.
So, That's
Yeah,
one of
I
our
was
plans,
reading-
is to use the
Right.
New England
Yep.
wetland.
I read an article and, there's a big emphasis on meadows and naturalized plantings, and this person writing it said, it breaks my heart when I see everyone mow their fields in late summer, early fall. He said that's all kinds of habitat and food going through the winter.
Mhm.
Just a thought.
Sure.
Mhm.
Well,
Oh, and I like your planting list.
Great.
Good planting
so I go
list.
back to my initial statement, I think this is a good thing, I support it.
I do too.
Mike, are there any conditions we have to have on this, or?
Just the standard special conditions, 1 through 18, and then the option of once per year mowing, and then won't enter this into the special conditions, but it may be in your best interest to renew this every 2 years. Ask for put it in a calendar or something, and ask for that the permit extension request, so that way this permit doesn't expire and you have to restart. You can just keep renewing it under the order of conditions.
Sure.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Are there any comments from the public on this? I don't see anything. I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and issue conditions. Do I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
What happens to those other ones, though?
Which one?
Oh, the certificates,
yeah, I just dropped it off and they'll have to.
I insist you
Thank
don't.
Good night.
Well, this is certainly a better outcome than when I first came on this commission and saw this. Okay, that concludes our hearings. We have 2 continuations. Where is it?
Excuse me, 61 Davis Point, I didn't get called.
Oh, I'm sorry, we did you first.
Oh, you guys were on mute, I never heard.
Oh,
It was approved with a determination of +5, -2. So I will have the permit for you available tomorrow or Friday if you want to just call the office ahead of time.
Oh, thank you so much.
sorry.
No problem.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, SE 423110, 0 Main Street, has requested a continuation to February 5th. We will grant that. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And Town of Marshfield DPW ditch clearing is also going to continue to February 5th. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we have COCs, SE 421362, 115 Partridge Brook Circle. This was the removal of the pool. I think, do you want to address this, Mike? I believe Andrew.
Yes, we received comments from the building commissioner today that he is overall satisfied with the property. There was some material, some concrete left within the old pool liner, as you can see here. That isn't ideal, but the fill is clean. The work was done properly, so we're satisfied with the work.
Are they supplying, is there an as-built?
There is no as-built.
I'm
Yeah, there's
just
no
asking
as-built for this.
because Andrew is asking for one if there is one.
Okay.
Okay. In that case, I move to approve the COC for 115 Partridge Brook Circle. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
SE 420988, 35 Riders Lane. That is completed, Mike, as
Yes.
planned. I move to issue a COC. Second, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. SE 422912, 44 Old Beach Road. Work done as proposed. I move to grant the COC. A second, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And SE 422905, 1192 South River Street. Work is done as proposed. I move to issue a COC. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that concludes our,
I might have missed it, but did you do 9272? 2972,
oh, I'm sorry.
Say it.
2972, I move to continue. We are waiting on a new plan. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes our business. I move to close the Conservation Commission hearing of January 22nd, 2025. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.